Hello everyone, and welcome back to another tutorial video here on the newly rebranded Dyllon KG. Today we're discussing the 3-gen strategy, how important it is, and how to secure one when you're playing as Killer. So let's just go ahead and dive right in. Let's first start with what a 3-gen strategy actually is. A 3-gen strategy is when you isolate which generators on the map are closest together, so that you may best defend those generators into the late game. 7 total generators spawn, but only 5 need to be completed by survivors to open the exit gates. Eventually, as survivors complete gens, they'll get down to having only 3 generators left available to repair, and if played correctly, you'll have control over those generators. What you want to avoid with the 3-gen strategy is losing pressure over closely placed generators, leaving you with random and sporadic generator placement in the late game that is nearly impossible to defend. So, to set up a 3-gen, this is what I do. Upon spawning, I mentally divide the map in half as best as I can. Afterwards, I'll sort of see which side has the highest quantity of generators. If they're split, pick the side where gens are closest together. Also try to keep in mind where survivors may have spawned, which is generally a decent distance away from yourself and where you spawned. This takes some level of practice to understand maps and develop an instinct for, but once you have your 3 to 4 gens selected, I generally won't patrol the other 2 or 3 generators that I've deemed as irrelevant or way too far away or risky. However, this depends upon the killer. See, because faster killers can get away with patrolling outside of their designated 3-gen area. This would be like Spirit, Oni, Freddy, etc. But this also depends on your judgment and capability with the killer. I play a lot of Trapper, Hag, Huntress, etc., and these are slower killers that can really lose a lot of time by going too far away from the areas that they want to control, especially against particularly smart survivors who can run you around for 30 to 45 seconds. Keep in mind, one survivor can complete a generator in 80 seconds if they have no additional perks, no toolboxes, and no great skill checks. It takes 2 survivors 47 seconds, give or take, under the same conditions. So allowing yourself to run across the map 30 to 40 seconds can really risk your late game pressure. So it's really important to know your killer and know how far you are allowed to deviate from the generators that you're trying to protect, and kind of getting a feel for that. Now, before we move on to the next tip, let me remind you to hit that subscribe button down below to keep helping our channel grow. We just hit 200 subscribers and my face is literally numb with excitement, so thank you all so much for that. That being said, let's discuss hitting survivors. Now, as you play the game, you'll get a feel for how to play in multiple situations. What I will say is that it is imperative that you wound as many people as possible, as often as possible. If you stumble upon a generator with multiple people, hit as many as you can before you start an extended length chase. Survivors will either heal, slowing down their ability to do generators, or they'll be an easier target later in the match if they don't heal. Wounded survivors are also generally not quite as brave when it comes to their ability to loop the killer around certain areas. As survivors complete gens and they move closer together into your 3-gen sort of territory, you may see them in multiple groups. Remember to not focus too hard on any one survivor initially if there are multiple targets that can be wounded, infected, hit, etc. Up next are chases. Be mindful of the perimeter that you're trying to set up when chasing survivors and how much time you have invested into a survivor chase. Once realizing all the generators left to be worked on are under your territory, many survivors will try to lead you as far away as possible during chases. This buys their teammates precious time to complete a generator in your territory to finish their last gen before escaping. This takes time to learn and develop. If none of the gens in your designated 3-gen area have much progress, it may not be a bad idea to give chase, even if it is just to wound or down the survivor without hooking. Knowing when to commit, when to walk away, and when to flock back to your gens takes time. You want survivors to feel safe enough to commit to working on generators so you can return and hit them. I will say though, if you do not have at least one kill by the time survivors have 1 or 2 gens left, your game is at big risk. 3 survivors can be managed. You can down one and slug them, chase another, and really disrupt their generator repair ability. But a 4-man team can usually wipe a 3-gen strategy. So keep this in mind as we move towards our next tip. Next, let's discuss hooking, as it's a really essential part of the 3-gen strategy. Now, when you down a survivor, trying your best to find a hook that allows you to continue exerting your 3 to 4 gen pressure is really, really important. You want to force survivors to make unsafe plays to get unhooks, which means you want to continue pulling them into your territory. So down the survivor and assess if you can bring them closer to the gens you're protecting. Keep in mind that straying too far from the hook in chases could allow survivors to unhook and hop immediately on a generator. I'm not advocating for, obviously, camping the hook. I need to make that very, very clear. But just take stock in where you have hooked somebody, nearby generators, and how far progressed those generators are if you are going to walk away from the hook to indulge in another chase. Again, allowing people to get safe unhooks and hop immediately on a generator leaves you with 47 seconds or less to get back to that generator. Next, of course, is the weakest link. I don't typically tunnel survivors. If you just got off the hook moments ago, I may not immediately go for you unless you're extraordinarily cocky. I want the game to be enjoyable, and if you're immediately down and dying all the time, that's not fun for you, and, well, that's not fun for your team. I don't feel very good as a killer by doing that. So, say I hook a Nia, then I start to chase other people. During my chase, the Nia gets unhooked, heals, starts working on a gen, something of that nature. If I see her again, I'm going to be more likely to chase her. She's been hooked before. She is the weak link for the team. If she dies, that's awesome. The minute you can get a team from 4 to 3 people, the better. Now again, I'm not saying I'm going to tunnel somebody, but I am saying that if I know I've hooked you before, you're on the top of my priority list, and that's generally how that's going to go for me. What I really mean to say here is that you should remember who has been hooked and how many times. This will help you prioritize certain survivors over others. If you know one survivor's never been hooked and 2 other survivors have been hooked at least once or twice, yeah, you can go for the one that's not been hooked, but if you only have 2 generators left before the doors can be opened, you may want to start going for the people who have been hooked before. Lastly, let's discuss win conditions. Look, I don't know about you, but I'm happy with killing 3 people. My win condition may vary from yours, but often if I kill 3 people, I'm happy. This allows one person to generally get a hatch escape if I don't find it first, and if it was a particularly hard-fought match that took 20 minutes, I may deny the hatch. I may take the win from them and get my 4K because I feel like I earned it. But it all just depends. That being said, a 3-gen strategy isn't something that is surefire. It's not guaranteed. A very confident group of survivors, a survive with friends, etc., they can prevent a 3 generator from happening just by being smart with flashlight stuns, flashlight saves, smart unhooks, and interesting perk combinations. It's possible. Be prepared for the likelihood that this will take time to learn, to execute properly, and for the inevitable moments where the 3-gen strat fails and you have to just sort of clamor for success. What I will say in all of this is any of the above strategy is important to know in any game of Dead by Daylight as a killer, especially as you start to rank up. Knowing how to have map control and knowing the 3-gen strategy is really important. If survivors are constantly forced to be around you, it's going to make it more likely that they can get downed by you. There's a lot of other tips and tricks that are going to help you, and we've made another video on how to end chases more quickly and how to mind game survivors, so be sure you go check that out. And I'll pray to the entity to see you guys in the next video.